continuing the conversation about Ross. I had a conversation with him this week. I said, "Hey, man, you're polarizing. You're going to be the guy we're all going to be talking about." This is before Darlington. This is before what happened this past weekend. I told him, I said, "Hey, man," he's like, "Hey, I heard what you said on your podcast, and I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to be an asset to the sport." He's like, you know, if I can help this sport and take it to new heights and be one of the guys in the field that does that, he's eager. We see him go on Pat McAfee. What's his name?
Pat McAfee.
Pat McAfee. That's right. I always get that wrong. He goes on his show, man. That's massive.
Yeah.
That's a huge audience, right? And he's out there actively doing these things and taking us places that we typically aren't at, right? That's the sign of somebody who's busting through that bubble into mainstream, right? Good things. We go to Darlington. All right, right before we get to Darlington, you see some clips on social media about Kyle Larson saying that Ross could possibly, if everything clicked in the right way, all the dominoes fall the right way, he could be bigger than Chase Elliott. I think that is a whole nother conversation, but that's Chase's teammate saying that. I don't know the context, or I didn't hear the audio, but from what I saw on social media, that's kind of what the gist of it was. And then I don't think it was a knock on Chase. I think it was just like, hey, Ross has a great opportunity here. Same thing we were saying here on this show. And then Denny actually says, hey, man, we've had some conversations. He's warming up to me. We're warming up. We're starting to feel like, hey, we might become friends, right? Or at least, right? Am I wrong about it?
He said it.
Yeah.
We all were like, come on, Denny.
No, this is exactly it. So this is like in Friends, where Ross and what's her face keep breaking up, getting back together. Rachel. Ross and Rachel. Yeah, that's Ross and Denny. They're going to be pals, and then they're going to crash on the track and be fighting, and then they'll be pals again. So that's the mark of a great entertaining show. That's what NASCAR needs. NASCAR needs that sort of the bromance, and then the brawling and the fighting and the feuds and the arguments, and then the mending of the fences, and then it all goes back to hell.
And literally everything you just said in the last 5 seconds happened all in this past weekend.
Happened in the past 14 days.
Right.
So, all right. So Ross is going into this weekend and had some positive things said about him by his competitors, whereas, leading up to that, before those comments, everybody was saying, the guy's reckless. He's wrecking cars, running in the back of people, driving like an idiot. He runs in the back of Poole at Dover and takes Larson out, right? Larson's still mad about that. The team hasn't forgot about it. We go to Darlington, and Ross is running really good, but Martin Truex Jr. is running better. Martin Truex Jr. is literally looking untouchable at first stage, right? Driving away, cruising, no competition. We get around midway through the race, and Ross starts running a little bit better. Ross is a little faster. And there was a period of time coming up to that end of the second stage, I believe, where Ross might have not been trying as hard as he could have to lap a particular car. It was his teammates in front of him. It was Suarez. Suarez is trying his butt off to stay on the lead lap, and Ross really doesn't have to lap this guy. He's his own teammate. I get it. And so maybe he was trying. Maybe he's stuck where he was, right? But ends up Truex running in the back of him, coming to the checkered flag for the end of the stage. Truex spins around. But now Ross has lost what I thought at the moment was his toughest competition, Martin Truex Jr., the strongest car throughout the day. Ross continues to lead more laps, and I'm sitting here thinking, man, we have predicted the future, and the future is happening right now. Ross is about to win at Darlington, one of the toughest racetracks in the series. If you win at Darlington, you're a damn wheelman. Guys that aren't drivers don't win there. And so he's in great position. They go through a green flag pit stop cycle that launched Larson over the top of everybody. He's like running third or so when they come down pit road for the green flag pit stops, and through the cycle, now Larson is out front. And he's fast, and he's fast enough to win. He's driving away. Nobody's catching him. Ross isn't catching him. Caution comes out late in the race, right? We get kind of reboot the race, hit the reset button. Ross gets a great restart. Everybody thinks he jumped the restart, and there's a lot of, not everybody. There's some people on social media like, hey, what about that, man? He jumped that restart. Okay, it's Darlington's tire spin. Guys get, NASCAR can see who hit the gas first. NASCAR knows whether someone jumped the restart or not. All right, you're not going to look at it visually. You're going to look at the data. And so NASCAR felt like it was a good restart. And Ross gets a caution as he's now the leader of the race in the moment and has control of the next restart. He chooses the inside line. They go down into turn 1. Contact between the two of them. I'll be honest with you. Ross came up the track, but that's the general, realistic line into one, even at side by side. The 5 and him make contact. I think, Larson was trying to make sure he held him tight. Didn't want to, give him all the room in the world. And then when they make contact, Loss completely washes up the racetrack and into the wall. And so Bill Elliott's in the booth, I guess, at this point for the race, and he says, children, put them in the sandbox together and they can't play. And after the race, I mentioned Rick Hinder had some words about Ross. He says he doesn't have to be that aggressive. He's got a lot of talent, but he's making a lot of enemies out there, and it's really getting old. And he's, he questioned whether Ross would be able to have success throughout the playoffs with all of these grudges that he's got against him. And I was feeling really bullish on Ross all the way up to that moment, right? I'm talked about him on this show last week. A lot of drivers talked about him this week. I felt great, thinking, man, he might win this race. And in that moment, I'll be honest with you. I have to be honest. We saw 2 of the best drivers. I know that Ross has yet to win the races to earn that moniker of one of the best guys in the field, but he's absolutely with talent. He's got loads of talent. We saw Ross with loads of talent, incredible hunger and determination, and one of the best in the series right now, Kyle Larson, who can run a car anywhere on the edge. We saw him last week at Kansas, just hanging on to try to win that race over Denny. You send them 2 guys down in the corner under 10 laps to go at Darlington. What do you expect? What do you expect?
Out of the best drivers in the world, and certainly the best 2, I would expect, if you're talking about the 2 best drivers, I'd expect them to be able to get through 1 and 2. But I completely expected those 2 to find themselves, to find each other.
Yeah. Okay. I think that I understand you now. So Ross is raw and still mistake prone, right? And we've seen that. He runs, he makes a mistake and hits Pool. Pool lifted pretty early into the corner, but still, it's a lap car. You got to Tony Sr. about Dover would tell me, you ought to know better. Mm-hmm. You got to know who's in front of you. He would have been mad at me for that. Yeah, if I was Ross. Ross is still finding those limits, but I'll tell you, man, I wish there were more people out there that were willing to go over them, over the limits, over the line.
So did you think that the outcome was exactly what you expected? Is that what you're saying?
I wasn't expecting it. I was hoping that we're going to have a race to the finish between the 2 of them. Gotcha. I was expecting that, but I was not surprised by, when they crash, I'm not like, I can't believe I'm seeing this. Right. I'm like, well, yep. Yeah, two guys that are bullheaded and absolutely both going to send it into the corner. 2 guys sending it into the corner where there's really not room for 2 cars to be sent that hard. Both of them diving into the corner as hard as they could to make it and hope one would bail. Yeah. It was a collision. They were on a collision course down that straightaway, off into the corner. It was inevitable.
That's how I feel.
Because of their mentalities, and I'm here for it. I did not love either one of those cars getting a terrible result, but this drama, there's been 3 really great weeks of racing. 3 really solid weeks. We had a little spell where things weren't going so great. in our world, in a big global NASCAR sense. A couple weeks where things just weren't all that awesome. We had some racing, and now we got more damn storylines than we know what to do with.
So, okay, listen, I'm with you on that. Let me ask you a couple of hypotheticals, though. If you're Rick, all right, quick. Rick Hendrick said he can't get away with that. Is Rick Hendrick right or wrong?
If I was Rick, I would have more than likely said the same thing. I mean, I think so. Here's my deal. Everybody that disagrees with what I'm saying, I see your point to Ross could have done this, Ross could have done that. The wreck shouldn't have happened. Harvick in the next restart with Byron acknowledged that he didn't quite have the car, right? And he chose a different path where they both exit the corner and William wins the race. So a lot of people are using that example as like, okay, this is how you do it. This is a veteran move where Harvick understands he can't win this battle. He's going to take them both out. So people are seeing, using that as a comparison of what should have or could have happened if Ross had chose to, give Larson a little more room. But my whole habit is I'm going to look at even some of the more difficult situations or some of the tougher or worse situations and try to find the positive in it. What's good about this, right? What's good about what's going on? Nobody loves this if you're a Larson fan or a Chastain fan. Nobody loves it if you're working on those cars. Nobody loves it if you're owner of those cars. The damn manufacturers sure don't love two Chevrolets leading and smashing into the wall. But will we sell tickets for next race? Will we have probably pretty good viewership for the next race? Will this storyline carry us through the summer where it's we tend to lose a little steam leading up to the end of the regular season before the playoffs? I'm with everything we were going through with the numbers down when Chase was out of the car, we're in a whole much better place now as a sport because of what these drivers are willing to do.
Sure. Hey, I'm with you on that. All right. One more hypothetical though. It's not really hypothetical, but if you're Justin Marks, you've had Ross's back publicly. Can't you honestly have a problem with this, though? Because Ross could have won this race. Ross needs a win, by the way. He hasn't won more than a year. And Trackhouse hasn't won this year, after that big momentum. Privately, Justin Marks is always going to have his guys back.
Man.
But can't you, as an owner, a race team owner, Ross, we could have had this one. We could have had the Southern 500, right?
I think that I don't think that I would be able to tell Ross that because if I was the owner, so Larson did a really good job on the restart. And basically what I'm curious about is how they feel about the lane they chose. So Ross beat Larson on the outside, became the control car when the caution comes out like that. Ross gave Larson the blueprint to the next restart. And they go off into one. Larson gets a great launch, and they go into one, and they're side by side.
He squeezed him.
Yeah. Chastain won it. Of course, when the restart happens, Chastain wants to launch and be clear, right? But he showed Larson the restart before how to beat it on the outside. And Larson's one of the best. Mm-hmm. So I think that Chastain was a little leery of starting in the outside because he didn't want the potential of Larson washing up into him, getting into his left rear quarter panel, right? Even in that moment, can you trust everyone to hold their line and not make contact? I don't know. It's hard to do. That was an interesting thing where Chastain beats Larson on the restart as the car, while Larson's the control car and Chastain's on the outside. Next restart, he chooses the inside. I mean, if Larson's on your door going into one, now you're in the worst spot. Now Larson's in the preferred line. You choose that inside, but you got to beat him into the corner. And if you don't, and he's on your door into one, I'm not sure you can beat Kyle Larson in that scenario. And so, you put two guys out there that are willing to put all the chips in the middle of the table and and gamble it all, and they did. And as tough as it is for them and frustrating as it is, I'm sure, today, fans and NASCAR and the industry were treated to something pretty unique. William Byron goes on to win the race. An incredible, accomplishment for that young guy. I think, over the last 4 years, Williams struggled to put the results up. Very consistent, top 10 them to death, but wasn't winning races. But they were patient, and now he's delivering, trophies as he expected or hoped he would at Hendrick Motorsports. Hey, if you like that video, like and comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss another piece of Dirty Mo Media content.